Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining us at this session today on how to cognitively enrich data in legacy systems. We have with us three awesome presenters, but before I introduce them, I just wanted to go over our general housekeeping rules and introduce myself as well and thank our sponsors. So I'm Kathleen Walsh. I'm a managing partner and principal analyst at Cognilytica. We're an AI-focused research, advisory, and education firm, and we've helped put this conference on today. This event wouldn't be possible without the incredible support of our sponsors and partners, including Allegion, Appen, AWS, Carahsoft, Cloud Factory, Databricks, DataRobot, Labelbox, Microsoft, MTX Group, OmniSci, and of course, Veritone, who we're lucky enough to have with us here at this session. I encourage you to check out their sponsor pages that you can get more information. Go to the dataaiconf.com website, and you can get a lot of information from them. We've also done a few sessions with Veritone, so please check that out on replay. But this conference is for you. And as such, we offer many ways for you to interact with the presenters. And so we want to make sure that you're really able to get as much out of this as you can. All live sessions offer a way for you to post questions. Below the video for the session is the Ask a Question button. You can click on that button to post any question that you'd like for the presenters throughout the entire presentation. And you can upvote on questions that are in there already. And I know we have a few great questions, so feel free to upvote them if you'd like that answered as well. All questions will be held until the end of the presentation, but feel free to type them as they come in. Also, if you're watching this on replay, you have the opportunity to go back and you can jump right to any of those Q&A sections as well. All questions will be monitored to make sure that it's appropriate content and that there's nothing promotional or inappropriate in nature. But so far, people have been great. In the spirit of maintaining maximum interaction between attendees and presenters, these events are held under the Chatham House rule. So anybody who comes to a session or meeting is free to use that information from the discussion, but you're just not allowed to reveal who made that comment unless you get their prior permission. All live sessions like this one are recorded and available for instant replay once the session wraps up. They'll be ready in about 5 to 10 minutes. And if you have any questions at all, we encourage you to check out the FAQ section, just about the event in general. That's a great starting point to help get all your questions answered. You can go, again, to our website, dataaiconf.com. But now I would like to introduce our three speakers from today because I'm really excited to have them with us. The first is Damon Brady. Damon is a Senior Director for Product Development and Programs in BAE Systems Geospatial Exploitation Products Group. This GXP group team delivers industry-leading geospatial intelligence software and solutions for data management, image exploitation, geospatial production, full motion video analysis, and intelligence reporting in support of mission-critical applications around the world. We also have with us Dave Cook, and Dave is a Senior Director for AI ML Professional Services and is the lead AI ML scientist for Figure 8 Federal in Washington, D.C. He currently drives Figure 8 Federal's work in Pathfinder AI ML programs in the Defense Department and intelligence community, and he has over 25 years of experience. And last but not least, we have with us Ryan Basler, who's the Vice President of Marketing at Veritone. He's responsible for product marketing, marketing communications, and demand generation for the aiWARE business unit, busy making the world a better place with the aiWARE operating system for AI. So I'd like to turn it over now to the three gentlemen and get their presentation started.
All right, great. Thank you, Kathleen. Excited to be here and excited to have Dave and Damon with us today. So today's session is going to be jam-packed. We're going to have discussions around leading edge AI technology and some exciting real-world use cases that you'll be learning about. First, I'll kick it off by giving you a primer on Veritone's aiWARE operating system for AI, as well as our Automate Studio workflow tool and our Clarity Engine benchmarking tool. But I'm most excited today about who I have with me. As you've heard, Dave Cook with Figure 8 Federal will share with us their technology that does ML-assisted data labeling for training AI models. After that, then we're going to have Damon Brady bring us home with some incredibly cool technology that performs automatic geo and time-based observation extraction from imagery, video, and text. We'll wrap up the session with any questions you may have, so sit tight and we'll try to answer as many questions as we can at the end. So first, a quick overview of who Veritone is. Veritone is a leading provider of AI technology through its proprietary aiWARE platform, which is an ecosystem of hundreds of ready-to-deploy AI models that make it easy to extract business value from video, audio, text, and data content at scale and in near real time without the need for AI specialists. You might have attended the Veritone ML Ops session as a part of this conference. If you haven't yet, I would encourage you to do so. This session, we're going to take a look at how Veritone's aiWARE platform and developer tools can deliver content intelligence that fuels whatever intelligent process automation initiatives that you might be pursuing in your organization. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Businesses, there we go, double click. Businesses are inundated with content, as we all know. Content, a lot of times, that holds value, but it's just not usable yet. Video, audio, text content is everywhere, just waiting to be discovered and utilized, whether that content sits within a BPA or RPA process or stored in content management or line of business systems. The challenge is how to enrich and extract that content for better findability, better insight, and how to do it quickly, safely, and at low cost. Companies have used AI to tackle this problem, as we all know, but locating and testing the best engine for the task can be complicated and time-consuming. Scaling the engine is another issue. Handling production workloads can be very, very challenging, as many of us know in the AI space. And then building all of this AI intelligence from scratch with expensive AI developers, data scientists, and ML engineers can quickly consume the budget and delay your project. So what is needed is an AI platform of ready-to-deploy engines across common use cases that we all see in our business that enrich and extract intelligence from that content without the need for AI expertise. And that's really where Veritone comes in and our aiWARE platform. So we're going to look at two different types of operating systems here, a computational operating system and a cognitive operating system. Just like we don't have to worry about really the details of our hardware or RAM or peripherals that are running underneath the Windows operating system, in a very similar way, the aiWARE operating system for AI hides those complexities around individual speech engines, text, vision, biometrics, audio, data, transformation. So you don't have to worry about how to program to each one of those engines' APIs. aiWARE provides that abstraction layer to simplify your application development and integration. And with Automate Studio, which we'll talk about shortly in this session, you can call the aiWARE engines from a nice, easy-to-use drag-and-drop workflow tool. So where does Veritone fit within an enterprise's automation ecosystem? Most enterprise automations do a really fine job of automating and analyzing structured data and processes. But when it comes to unstructured content extraction and insight, they fall short. These systems need AI to automatically index and extract the content that we're processing, whether from video, image, audio, text, and data. So Veritone essentially adds the intelligence to your process automation. aiWARE and the Automate Studio low-code workflow designer that we offer take essentially a three-step approach to adding content intelligence to business applications. And that would be whether a business process automation system that you might already have, an RPA system that you may already have, and a content and records management system, or even a line of business system or a custom application. No matter what you are using, we can essentially inject that intelligence. So first we ingest the content. And wherever that content may live, it could live in content management systems. It could be streamed live from audio and video sources. It could be from cloud file systems like Box, Dropbox, Google Drive, YouTube. It could come from social media. So once that content is ingested, then we use AI engines to enrich that content, indexing, timestamping, understanding, and then extracting that content for later search. Or we could actually use the extract and that content insight that we've gained elsewhere in the business. Finally, the third step is we infuse the resulting enriched or extracted data back into the calling business process or system. So let's get a little bit more into Automate Studio. This is our low-code tool for creating AI engine workflows. And this tool can allow you or enable you to orchestrate this ingest, enrich, infuse process. Rules can be set up to trigger content ingestion, and then multiple what we call chain cognition flows can operate on that ingested content across over 20 different engine classes representing hundreds of AI models. So once that text is extracted and summarized, or for example, object, logo, or face is detected, or maybe speech is transcribed using all of these different engines in the platform. And once all that content is combined with business logic and rules steps in the workflow of Automate Studio, the resulting extracted insight can then be infused with other business systems and processes. So you could either use our connectors or quickly create your own custom connectors and connect to third-party SOAP, REST, and GraphQL APIs. You can also send insights as reports via email or SMS or API. So let's go ahead and apply this kind of three-step process of ingest, enrich, infuse to customer contact centers. In this remote age that we live in right now, very important to be able to automate contact centers. Calls and emails can be automatically ingested and then translated, potentially if you need to, and transcribed. And then the text can be analyzed for keywords and sentiment. So there you have some ingest and enrich going on. And another example is that existing customer information can be pulled from your systems and then automatically displayed to the customer service rep during customer engagement. So that's more of an infuse. For information requests that are coming in, knowledge-based auto responses can be generated based on whatever topics, keywords, and entities are extracted from the content of the call or email. So that's enrich and infuse. Another example is negative sentiment messages, such as complaints or requests for refunds, can be handled by automatically connecting that to the customer retention department for handling. So again, enrich and infuse going on there. So you can see how intelligently analyzing text and audio content in near real time, in this case, and taking appropriate action on that content can greatly boost contact center operational efficiencies and can drive costs down significantly. So you can learn more about this by checking out the separate session here at Cognilytica called Contact Centers, and I believe that's either today or tomorrow, but definitely check that out. All right, so here is how Automate Studio kind of fits into the overall aiWARE platform technology stack. So I'm going to start from the bottom up. First, you have the data ingestion layer, and then the cognition layer of AI engines that we just talked about. Then the controller that essentially orchestrates multiple cognition engines. And then above that, you have the database layer that stores the resulting content excerpts as well as insights and metadata for use by Automate Studio or for use by the set of aiWARE APIs at the ingestion layer, which is the next layer up there. The applications at the top call these APIs or the deployed Automate Studio project that you deployed. And these applications at the top could be Veritone's applications. We have a nice suite of applications to solve specific business problems. You can check those out on our website. It could also be your legacy systems, right? Which is really the topic of this session today, is ingesting intelligence back into your legacy, infusing intelligence back into your legacy systems, or any kind of custom applications that you might build that use all of this underlying cognition. So here's a screenshot of Automate Studio showing the different nodes that you can essentially drag and drop, interconnect, and create AI-based workflows. And then you can deploy those workflows as engines. So we kind of package that up as another engine. It's just a workflow of engines that is callable by other applications, processes, and systems. Since Automate Studio is pre-integrated with our aiWARE platform, all the aiWARE content engines that we've talked about are accessible by simply dragging the appropriate node onto the canvas and drilling in to configure it. So pretty straightforward stuff for your citizen developers and business analysts. You can try out Automate Studio yourself by just going to the URL that you can see here. So definitely check that out after the session. One more slide here before I hand the ball over to Dave. I wanted to mention that we've talked so far about easily deploying ready-to-go AI models for content intelligence, but with so many models to choose from, it's tough to know what will work best for your use case. And I saw this Q&A item here. So not only do I need to understand which engine works best for my unique use case, but I also need to understand post-deployment, how can I monitor the performance, the cost, and provide some explainability and peer into how that AI engine is actually working? And how can I do this over time as data changes and as models inevitably will drift? So to address these very real issues that are facing all of us in AI today, we've developed what we call Clarity, and it's an application that measures performance, cost, bias, and explainability for any AI engine. And that could be an aiWARE engine, a third-party engine, or your own homegrown engine. And this Clarity tool helps you benchmark the different engines against others to ensure that you're selecting the right engine for the job and make sure that you have the most successful project you can have. So we're really excited about this offering. It's in beta at this point, but definitely keep your eyes peeled for that as we go forward here. And I think that's a great segue, actually, in talking about data. While we've just discovered how AI models, what AI models are out there, how to easily deploy them, but we really haven't talked much about the actual data sets that make those models successful. So that's a good opportunity here to introduce Dave Cook at Figure 8 Federal. And Dave's going to tell us more about his ML-assisted data labeling for any trainable AI model. So Dave, over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. So really appreciate that. And as Ryan said, just by way of introduction, my name's Dave Cook. I'm a senior director over AI/ML professional services at Figure 8 Federal, and I'm also the lead AI/ML scientist. And I wanted to kick off here, if we go to the next slide, really with a quick observation, which is nothing moves in machine learning without training data. And what we're really talking about there in that circumstance is, what is the fuel for machine learning models? What's the fuel for machine learning assisted annotation? What's the way in which you're really able to take, just like the title of this presentation, how do you enrich data in legacy systems and turn it into fuel that you can then use to fuel machine learning models overall? That's what we're really going to be spending our time about today. And we're going to cover a couple of our experiences working on the government side, as well as our commercial experiences, and then talk about what really goes into this process of creating machine learning training data that's auditable, that has integrity, that's got quality enforced, that can really help and aid in human machine teaming. Because one of the things that's key to us at Figure 8 Federal in any human machine teaming initiative is that your data should really reflect human values, things like auditability, integrity, quality. That's what we really try and to put into every step of our process. So if we go into the next slide, who are we? Who's Figure 8 Federal? So really quickly, Figure 8 Federal is a DC-based company, but we have Silicon Valley roots. We've been working in the DC area for about 3 years, but we've been working in Silicon Valley for 15 plus years. We're a company that has a facility clearance. We work on DoD and intelligence community programs. It's certainly a core part of what we do. It's not only what we do, but it's definitely our foray into the government space. We're a company that supports scalable DevOps through real deep experience in work both on the government side as well as our work with commercial entities. So we bring a lot of really good learnings of how do you work with machine learning training data at scale to our work with the government. We take some of that work and that insight that we have where government, everything is at scale. We take that insight and bring it back to our commercial work as well. We enable AI/ML scale at scale with expertise really in data processing and pipeline automation. This is one of those core competencies that you have to have when you're working, in the kinds of large problem sets that I think we work with and that everybody probably on the call here works with. And then we provide a product. It's a it's a platform that supports human in the loop annotation. We provide both the product as the platform as well as individual labelers, people that are actually physically labeling the data. And we do that from unclassified data all the way up to top secret SCI level kind of data. If we go to the next slide. So what problem do we solve though? That's always kind of the core question. And AI and machine learning really faces a common problem. It's how do you create, curate, and build machine learning training data at scale and be able to deploy that data at scale? How do you feed machine learning models? They're incredibly data hungry. And DJ Patil, the former US chief data scientist, really has a great quote about this, which says the hardest part of data science is getting good, clean data. Cleaning data is often 80% of the work. And if we start with everything, if you look at the left, on the bottom left with data identification, all the way to data augmentation, you add those numbers up, it equals 80%. This is a core problem that every data scientist really runs into, is how do I get good, quality training data that I can use to train my models, and how am I ensuring that that data is auditable? But there's also a second quote here that I'm borrowing from Namal Chandani, the acting director and CTO of the JAIC, which is, we train the model on a particular training data set, but that data set is not representative of global terrain or global information. So when you think of the diversity, the training data set from a testing and representative perspective is so important. That's really talking about model refresh. How is it that I'm able to take a machine learning model for one particular area and generalize it across a number of different areas? And those are things that we really focus on helping our customers solve, our government customers and our commercial customers. We go to the next slide. So our current work within the DoD, and this is just essentially how we're doing some of that work. Just to give you an idea of some of the things that we're really involved in right now. We go from the top left all the way over to the bottom right. We have use cases that are really working on video, such as full motion video, classified and unclassified use cases, where we're applying machine learning assisted annotation. We have work on imagery, where we're working on things like SAR, synthetic aperture data, EOIR data, LiDAR data, also on classified and unclassified use cases, audio as well as text. In some cases, we're actually doing multi-dimensional data labeling, where we're bringing together video and audio, or video and text, all tied to a similar geographic location. But key to all of this, or wrapped up in this, is secure cloud, dedicated deployments, bare metal deployments, as well as cloud deployments. We've generated over 350 million annotations in our work with the DoD. And it's a pretty significant part of what we do, along with providing those data engineering and those data pre-processing kinds of work. But to be fair, we have deployments that are everywhere on NIPR, on SIPR. We work across the classification scale. If we go on to the next slide. So one of the use cases that I wanted to talk about really quickly, I cited a quote from Namal Chandani, and one of our key learnings there is with the Joint Artificial Intelligence Center on what we call the HATTR workflow, Humanitarian Assistance and Disaster Response, something that's incredibly important today. One of the things that I like to highlight about our work here, aside from just being able to help the JAIC, the Joint Artificial Intelligence Center, solve problems, is the ability for us to plug into the workflow. There is, I like to say, there's nothing really flashy or incredibly sexy about what we do. Data annotation is the guts and the sewer pipes of machine learning, but it's incredibly important, and things won't succeed without it. And what we do, like in our work with Veritone as well, is we often sit in the background and through industry standard APIs are feeding mission tools. I worked with somebody else on the Air Force side at one point, and they made a very cogent point is, I think that what you're trying to do and what you're trying to solve is great, but I don't want you to interrupt the workflow. That's the key thing. We've trained people on this workflow, find a way to work within it. And that's what we've done in our work with the Jake. So you can see on the left, we've got a screen where somebody is essentially kicking off an annotation job where the data is getting annotated. They can bring that data back and train a machine learning model without ever really interacting within our platform at all. On the right, you see what we call our workflows tool, which is essentially a drag and drop ability to chain together annotation tasks. So you can have, depending upon your ontology, you can have multiple annotation tasks running at the same time, or you may have, for example, an initial task followed by what we call a peer review. Somebody's checking that work. These are all things that we can do in the background using our industry standard APIs. And frankly, we spun up this integration fairly quickly with a couple of Python scripts. This really allowed us to get somebody up and running easily and start to solve problems very quickly. If we go on to the next slide. Another example that we've got here, as Ryan talked about, is our use cases in machine learning assisted annotation. We offer machine learning assisted annotation across all of our data types: audio, video, imagery, and text. What is ML Assist? Well, in essence, machine learning assisted is facing the reality that there's so much data in the world and there are just never going to be enough humans to be able to annotate all of it. You need machines to be able to help you do this. You need to have humans in the loop, though, that are able to check what a machine learning model is doing so that that data can get annotated, but you're sure that it's being annotated properly. And what you see in a couple of examples here is our work with text. You've got at the bottom left an example of our work with an OCR capability where we're essentially taking things like receipts or PDFs and scanning that in. And on the right, you've got an example of our work with LiDAR, which is another data type there. But we've prototyped this work on our work on the government side, and in some cases we have seen up to a 51x improvement in terms of throughput and quality via machine learning assisted annotation, particularly on full motion video. So this is something that we know is a future need, and the future is now. It's something that we're working on now. So we've generated a significant amount of annotations just working off of this particular kind of use case. We go on to the next slide. So the last thing that I really want to focus in on is how do we do it? How is it that we're transforming legacy data really overall into fuel? And there's just a couple of key components that I want to highlight here about how Figure 8 Federal does what we do on the government side. So the first thing is that just like you saw in the last two slides, we're accessing all of our data. If we go on the far left, we can either upload it directly or we access it via API. What we don't do, though, is ingest data. Data stays at rest. We put it on top, a web browser on top of it. We render it via a URL, and we're showing it within a browser. But we are never ingesting data. We are not taking anybody's data in order to train up our models in order to then try and sell it back to somebody. That's just not something that we do. It's your data, and we respect that. We want to make sure that your data is able to retain provenance, it's able to retain integrity. It's really something that is key to what we do. But once we get into that step where we're rendering data and we're looking at the data to see how we're going to label the data at scale, how we're going to take a data set and actually put it out to a bunch of annotators to be able to label it, we go into what's called the data design step. Now, this is something that is really important because it's a lot of data science. It's a little bit of art and it's a little bit of science. There's a lot of nuance to this. How do you take and break down a data set into its component parts and then you can get it labeled at scale? And we have a number of different things that we use for this. We have industry-based templates or use case templates for things like sentiment analysis or image analysis or computer vision. So we have a lot of learnings just about how you do this. But I can say that there's probably no other company in the world that knows how to do this as well as we do. We have graphical editors, we have conditional logic and the ability to ingest ontologies, or you bring your own ontology. So we're able to ingest that and make it searchable, make it really configured for the kind of job that you need. It's a very iterative process, but it's something that we really feel is incredibly important. Once we get that data design right, though, then we go into what we call the job optimization, which is really about how are we going to configure and route the job? What parameters are we going to set on it? What kind of automated workflows are we going to have? Are we going to be able to match it to an appropriate annotator? So we may have smart matching of saying, for example, we have a set of annotators that are very good on a particular data type. They're good at SAR, or they're good at LiDAR, or they're good at full motion video. They're good at text. In those kinds of circumstances, we're really keen on how do we get the right annotator to the right place. And this is where we can also look at machine learning assisted annotation or worker DNA. Is somebody specialized for a particular kind of language? Figure 8 and particularly our parent company, Appen, have access to over 180 different languages, particularly for certain kinds of dialects. So it's really a unique distinguisher for us. From there, we go into annotation management, which is smart tooling, named entity extraction, or we have, for example, the ability to look at particular kinds of channels, what we call business process organizations, or NDA channels, or trusted contributors. All of these are things that we know about both the tools and the annotators, so we can really get a good sense of where this needs to be routed to. And then finally, on top of this, wrapping all this, is the quality control pieces. And we employ a couple of things. One of them is just test questions. So test questions are things where everybody right now, everybody on the call here could become a labeler. You could get access to our platform and label data. Not everybody gets to work on every particular kind of job. So that's not something that everybody's necessarily able to do. But you do have to pass a quiz in order to be able to know how you're going to work on a particular job, making sure that you understand the nature of the job and what you need to do. Following that, we have randomized test questions that go into the job itself. And so that's designed to keep acuity up and to make sure that people, are not falling off, that as they're working through 2 or 3 or 4 different segments, or 5 different screens, that they're not losing an understanding of what it is that they're supposed to be doing. And then we have what are called level contributors. So we track what everybody does on the platform. And so we're able to understand, for example, if somebody has more of an expertise, if, over time they've developed a reliability to what they do. If somebody falls below a quality threshold, though, on our platform, then their results are stripped out and they're not included in the final data set. So we take quality incredibly seriously, and it's something that is key to really providing training data at scale. There are reporting engines, there's other security aspects that go to what we do, but we manage over 1 billion annotations on our commercial cloud a year, our commercial cloud platform a year. We've done over 15 billion, since we've been in business. And we're really working with the government and commercial partners at scale to really help them build the kind of fuel that's going to enrich the data within legacy systems. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Brady or Damon, and I think Damon's got some more information for us. This is just my contact information, which will be available at the end of the presentation.
That's great. Thanks, Dave. that was good stuff there, and I think the biggest telling statistic for me was 80% of the effort is in the data itself. That was pretty eye-opening, and sounds like that's really where you're focusing your efforts. So thanks again. That was great. So we'll wrap up today's session then with Damon Brady at BAE Systems, and Damon's going to share some exciting things that they're doing with the Veritone aiWARE platform, specifically around advanced geospatial solutions. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Damon.
Thanks very much, Ryan. Thanks, Dave. Just by way of quick introduction, my name is Damon Brady. I'm the Senior Director for Product Development and Programs at BAE Systems. I'm excited to be here. Appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about some of the way we're looking at driving GEOINT transformation through some workflow transformation. Quick agenda, I'll talk a little bit about BAE and GXP for a moment, but then really try to get into present you with a little overview of some of our legacy workflows, and then talk a little bit about some of the things that we're trying to do using artificial intelligence and machine learning to help drive transformation of those workflows and the broader GEOINT industry. And so on the next slide, I'll just quickly touch base on BAE Systems and GXP. So BAE provides some of the world's most advanced technology-driven defense and aerospace and national security solutions. GXP, or Geospatial Exploitation Products, within BAE is a premier provider of software tools that enable geospatial intelligence processing, collection, and dissemination. And we really serve the defense, intelligence, and critical infrastructure communities. Within that, we serve a global customer base, just under 30 countries, with over 50,000 imagery and geospatial intelligence analysts. GXP came about 20 years ago, a little more than 20 years ago, with a core focus on imagery exploitation and the advent of the digital light table. And we've adapted during various periods of GEOINT transformation to become a fully integrated ecosystem that includes a comprehensive data management capability in our GXP Explorer platform, the ability to collect and exploit video and motion GEOINT through our GXP in Motion product line, develop or produce real-time situational awareness information with our GXP OpsView capability. And we're excited to be moving forward now with GXP Fusion, which is a multi-ant software tool that's designed to help address what we think is the most recent phase of GEOINT transformation. That really is the big data and the rise of AI and ML. On the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about what that convergence looks like. And we're firmly of the belief that the next phase in that GEOINT transformation is upon us now. It's really been driven by the onset of the big data problem across the intelligence disciplines that we've worked with, and really has a solution available to it, given the emergence of AI and ML as the means for solving some of those problems. As GXP's looked to address some of these macro issues that have come about as a result of this big data onslaught, we've taken the position that nearly all data is related to other data in some way, and nearly all that data is important to our customers and shares some common attributes, most notably positions around space and time. So the GEOINT community, as it happens, is expert in relating data in a spatio-temporal context. And as such, we really see the opportunity for GEOINT to be positioned as the epicenter of converged intelligence as we go forward. That said, there are certainly some customer challenges that we face that we talk about on the next slide. And those are really focused around the data deluge. There have been years of focus around deploying new sensor modalities and capabilities to collect more information and be able to gather. It's really easy to collect that information now. The question really becomes, what do you do with that information? How do you manage those vast amounts of information and process accordingly? Some of our customers operate some of the most legacy systems that are available out there today. It's not uncommon to see very antiquated tools and capabilities that are deployed out there, very inflexible workflows. A lot of those are proprietary and expensive. There's been a generation of workflow tools and capabilities that have been out there. And the intelligence communities in general have operated in silos by necessity over the years. And what that's led to is some significant stratification in the markets and across various disciplines. Finally, there's always the resource and manpower limitation that's faced. There is a limit to the amount of analysts the number of analysts that are available to a community, and so the ability to address all of the data in a reasonable time frame can be a difficult challenge. So what kind of an approach do we take to address this? Well, we have to look across people, you have to look across process, you have to look across technology. And at GXP, we're trying to do all those things by providing a data agnostic perspective that allows us to be able to look at data at rest in any location. Content delivery is obviously extremely important. We have to be able to get the right intelligence information to the analyst, but then also from the analyst to the consumer of that intelligence data, whether it be at the strategic level or at the tactical level. So there's a lot of effort that goes into that. As we seek to bridge digital divides and work across silos, we need a seamless user experience. Taking advantage of work and application of AI technology through orchestration is obviously important. Finally, we have to have the infrastructures and and Dave talked about, and Ryan have both talked about, cloud enablement, but also private cloud and being able to support on-prem deployments. You could spend easily an hour plus talking about this, but we're really going to focus around the AI orchestration piece for the rest of this conversation. And what I thought I would do is really bring to a true legacy workflow that exists today and just walk through that in brief, and then use that as a framework to show how we're looking at building on. So many of our workflows are based around satellite-based imagery exploitation. And a very simple and typical workflow, that straightforward and typical workflow that is routine, is pictures are taken from a satellite. Those are downloaded and cataloged in our data management tool. And then we have analysts who go and are informed by a workflow management capability. They go pull satellite imagery, use our tools like Socket GXP or GXP WebView to exploit that imagery and generate observations. That means they're looking for things in that picture, and they're noting things in that picture and making observations, essentially. Those in turn are developed into intelligence products that are disseminated, and they go back, and those observations are then stored in our GXP Explorer catalog for future use and reference. So what we've started to do is, as we try to address some of these common issues that are going on, we've started to say, all right, we know that we're leaving a lot of data on the cutting room floor, and we've taken on the next slide a very simple step to apply machine learning. We're calling it, originally enough, the GXP learning, or the GXP machine learning enabled workflow. And what this does is very simple. When we have mission owners who are very staid in their ways, they've been, as Dave mentioned, using the same workflows that are proven for multiple years, we have a very significant issue with adoption. And so what we brought in is allowed machine learning to play a role in the normal imagery exploitation workflow, and that's what this orange or gold loop represents, by implementing a machine learning orchestration capability that allows access to a variety of object detection or other machine learning capabilities, injecting those into the observations path or workflow in the normal process. So you have an analyst who is effectively supporting the large at-scale training efforts by bringing domain expertise to a particular mission or a particular workflow, feeding in turn that active training learning engine, feeding the training data repository, and then enabling the continuous improvement of that machine learning enabled workflow. What this really does is it allows for adoption of artificial intelligence and machine learning at the mission owner's pace, and it allows the mission owner to use their selected technology so that they're able to use the tools that they feel work best to solve their particular mission need. And what we've seen is that starts to provide a very tenable way to bridge the gap between continuing to ensure a continuity of operations and mission execution, while also being able to take on and start to tackle some of the large-scale training issues that Figure 8, for example, is solving, and bring an ecosystem orchestration system of diverse machine learning algorithms to the table, so that those mission owners can then experiment and try different capabilities. So moving on to the next slide, we start to think beyond our common, and you can go ahead and click through there, Ryan. We start to think beyond our common imagery and traditional geospatial exploitation capabilities and start to think, okay, what could we do now? What is the art of the possible if we start to look at how we can bring other data sources and other data elements from intelligence disciplines to the table? And what additional value could we bring to those imagery observations or those GEOINT observations, and what other data can we synthesize? And so we've been working aggressively through that machine learning orchestration capability to bring natural language processing, for example. We're working to try to bring real-time streaming data against voice and video into the fray. And what that really starts to do is allow us to develop fused insights through business intelligence, through charting, through graph visualization, et cetera, and really start to unlock new relationships that were previously buried in a multi-unit data source. And the next slide starts to bring that into picture a little bit more, where we start talking about a visualization of and orchestration of that AI technology. So imagine if we can take our imagery and object detection, bring entity extraction from text and documents, create relationships, fuse those with track extractions from full motion video as an example, and bring those together in a cohesive data set, while letting machine learning do the bulk of that processing, and allow the humans to really focus on extracting the intelligence value. And at the end of the day, that's really where we're trying to head. And so some of the key benefits that we see as we've moved down this path and are working around AI orchestration and augmenting of legacy workflows is really focused around the commonality of location and time and space, bringing those pieces together to generate that converged intelligence picture. What we've seen in our tests, we have customers with the Air Force and many others, but we've seen essentially the portfolio of data be able to go from something like 20 to 30% of data processed through traditional analysis means to having all data processed, so nothing left on the cutting room floor, which is a step change in itself. There's anywhere from a 4 to 10x improvement that we've seen in cycle time if you take a traditional processing, exploitation, and dissemination work cycle. We see anywhere from a 4 to 10x improvement on some of those basic workflows. And we're seeing an increase in trust and confidence because we're able to show metrics that demonstrate the validity of AI/ML workflows. We're seeing a reduction in the overall production workload and an acceleration in intelligence creation, which obviously provides better insights throughout the chain of command. And really starting, and I think Veritone, Ryan mentioned this during his conversation, when we talk about the complexity and deployability and cost of deploying AI and ML, working in a seamless fashion that allows the end customer who isn't a data scientist, who is an analyst who knows how to exploit imagery, how to exploit geospatial intelligence, being able to provide these tools in an easy to use and systematic way is really where we're seeing a ton of benefit. So we're eager to continue our collaboration going forward. Eager to continue to drive GeoINT transformation using AI and ML orchestration. And Ryan, I think that rounds us out. Maybe get back to you.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. All right, perfect. And I will just, Ryan, I'll exit your slide. So thank you, everybody. That was a really great presentation. I know that we have a bunch of questions and I want to make sure we get time to ask the questions from the audience. So I'll start with this question. If you're currently working in a business analyst or data analyst position, what advice would you give somebody to pivot into the role of artificial intelligence and machine learning? And I know that you guys specifically talked about, how to enrich data and legacy systems. So let me know if this is a question that, you think you can address.
Had seen this, and it's a great question. Frankly, I think right now, given folks being at home and folks trying to upskill, it's really timely. So in seeing this, I had a couple of ideas that I would suggest. First off, frankly, there's never really been a better time to get into the world of data science and AI and ML. There's tons of online training out there. I'd recommend learning some Python, and there are plenty of opportunities or plenty of places where you could do that. But definitely doing some online training or find a certificate program at either an online university or a local university. Those are two really good ways to do that. I think the other thing, though, that's really important is think about what it is that you want to do, because AI and machine learning is a pretty broad field. So there are a number of different roles that you can have. I'm going to be a little more to the data side. So, do you want to be a data engineer? Do you want to be a data scientist? Do you want to be an AI and ML engineer? Do you have specific areas like data types that you want to focus in on? If you have, for example, I'm a GEOINT guy at heart. And so if you have a real specialty for that, that can help guide you in kind of some of the things that you want to do. Two other things I would suggest really quickly. First, make a commitment to constantly learning. As fast as you think you've learned a tool, the new one's going to come out. So, get ready for that. And then join a meetup. There are plenty of meetups out there that are all online now. And so you can really get a lot of good insight. The data science and AI/ML community is very welcoming. And I think you'll find a lot of people that are really willing to talk to you about that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that.
Hey, I could just add quickly, Kathleen, that what we've seen from the defense community is a very significant rapid interest in making some of those transitions and seeing traditional GEOINT analysts, folks who are accustomed to looking at pixels, really start to educate themselves and take the next step. So Dave is spot on. Python scripting. We've at our annual users conference, we've seen an incredible interest in how analysts can get involved, and incredible interest and aggressive moving forward and using Python scripting to access some of these machine learning capabilities, and then test them against the workflows and the missions that they're really familiar with. So we're seeing mission owners constantly surprised by the kind of novel ideas and capabilities that are being brought forward by the analyst community. So yeah, getting some of that technical baseline, understanding the fundamentals around data analysis, around artificial intelligence and machine learning scripting, and then figuring out how you can make incremental progress and steps forward in your particular role, seem to have added a lot of value to the work that our teams are doing.
All right, thank you guys for that. Now, I know that there can be a lot of challenges when you're trying to enrich, data with legacy systems, but what are some of the biggest challenges that you have seen currently?
Well, from my perspective, the biggest challenge that we see on a recurring basis is adoption, number one. And the real reason that we see struggles in adoption is driven by just the size of the machine, the size of the defense machine, and the complexity of the environment in which we're looking to change, to affect changes. The tools and the missions that are being undertaken are mission critical. They're literally lives at stake in many cases, whether that's a humanitarian assistance or a traditional defense or intelligence workflow. So there's an incredible desire, but at the same time, an incredible reluctance to change and fully utilize the benefits afforded by AI and ML. So we've worked very, very hard to make sure that we have a smooth evolution, and we have constant demonstration of provenance, constant demonstration of the validation and verification throughout the steps of these workflows to build that trust and build that confidence. We're also aggressive in advocating for standards and policy development within the defense community in particular, as a means of helping to promote and move that ball forward. That said, the benefits outweigh. You're pretty much at the tipping point where the JAIC in particular have demonstrated that the benefits outweigh the risks in many cases, and there's a lot of opportunity to move more quickly now.
Yep, I agree. I think Damon hit a lot of key points there. Two things that I would add. One is understanding the importance of data. Like I said early on, nothing moves in machine learning and AI without training data. Whether you're doing supervised learning, you're going to move to unsupervised learning. I think we'll see the promise of reinforcement learning within the next year or two. But, really, you have to think about what's my data acquisition strategy and how am I going to deal with getting scalable data. That is just one of those key things that it's really great. I love models. I am a data scientist at heart, but models can be very shiny and flashy. And then you get into how am I going to get data to train them? And you really have to think that through. The other thing that I'll add is, frankly, there's still a little bit of fear around, particularly with the customers that I work with. And it's fear of not understanding that this is not about replacing humans. It's about human machine teaming. It's letting the machines do what they do well and letting humans do what only humans can do. And with the volume of data that we're dealing with and the kinds of problems that we're dealing with, we need machine learning to help us deal with the problems, but they cannot solve the kinds of problems ultimately that we need to solve. Only humans are really going to be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you, Dave and Damon both. One of the challenges that we see at Veritone, kind of related, especially to Damon, what you were talking about, was, it's one thing to process a particular variable, right? What, maybe it's or a particular piece of content for one result. It's another thing to bring together multiple different data sources, time-stamped, geo-stamped, video, audio, text, and then make sense out of a massive amount of data, and be able to make intelligent decisions based on that. And really, I think we're at the cusp of where that is now possible, obviously with platforms such as what Veritone provides. But yeah, that's I think where we really are going to see some accelerated benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Now we have time for one more question. I know that we have a few more that have come in. So, thank you guys. This was really a great presentation. I know all three of you needed to talk and get in, and you've provided some of your contact information. And also, if you'd like to directly talk to Veritone, we encourage you to check out their sponsor page so that you can get more information and get your questions answered directly with them. You can also schedule, one-on-one time to talk to them. But I want to make sure that we have time to ask one last question. So somebody talked about bias with data. So, data has inherent bias. And what are best practices that you would recommend your clients take to remedy bias in data outcomes? And then a comment with that was that, even clean data can produce biased outcomes. So how do you guys, what do you recommend to your clients?
Sure. I can start. I have a feeling that we all could comment about data. We all have data problems. I mean, look, I think that there are a couple of things that you can do with data. I'll take this from the approach first of what can you do within the annotation steps. Certainly some of the things that we do, redundancy, I think is kind of key. And then things that you can use in order to keep acuity up as the data is being annotated. Those randomized test questions providing, and also providing, good guidance in terms of how you want the data annotated. But another thing to really understand about how you can, remediate bias in AI is understanding that in anything you're doing in AI, it's always iterative. So a lot of the things that we do when we're looking at how we are annotating data is, we test quite a bit. We take the approach of, it is a hypothesis test. We'll know we're successful when we reach X. We believe this, and we'll know when we're successful when we reach X. So we always test before we actually put something into production. Just a couple of other things I would say, though, is understanding, as you're thinking, what's your model and what does success look like for you? Because that's going to give you some insight on bias. Make sure that you're annotating all of your data and that your data is representative and that you're also injecting novelty into that data. So you can not overfit your model and not, underfit your model. You're trying to adjust for that bias variance trade-off. And then understand that in data has inherent bias. In understanding remediate bias in your AI outcomes, understand that you're always going to have to incorporate model refresh into your models. There are a number of ways in which you have to deal with bias, but you're always aiming for that bias variance trade-off, not overfitting, but not underfitting. And there's just a number of kind of iterative steps I think that you can take there. I will add that I put in there, I have a set of really best practices in data engineering. So if the person who asked a question, you want to reach out to me, I'd be glad to talk with you further about it.
Yep. From my perspective, I really don't have anything to add to that. I think Dave said it. Dave summed everything up. We try to just make sure we have humans in the loop and we have defined success and frequent model refresh. Those are the elements that we've been able to take on from kind of our legacy workflow perspective.
Yeah, agreed.
Dave nailed it.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you, guys. This was a great presentation. I know that there was a few questions we didn't get to, and so Heidi, in particular, you had, a question about. She said, "I went off online after the last presentation and saw that you have AI solutions for the public safety sector. So, can you talk more about that?" So, if that's for Veritone, I encourage you to reach out to them correctly, or I read directly. But thank you, everybody. And then did you want to touch upon that really fast, Ryan?
No, I can reach out. That's fine. I mean, we definitely check out our website. We have some really, really compelling apps that you'll see, and a picture's worth 1,000 words there.
All right, perfect. So thank you for that. And thank you, everybody. This will be available on replay. So if you'd like to rewatch it, I encourage you to do so. And you can reach out to everybody directly. We'll be back at 1 p.m. Eastern for our keynote.
Thanks, Kathleen. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.